the Maelstrom, ladies and gentlemen. We have another Dropzone Commander battle report for you today. We're doing 2,000 points of Shaltari Tribes versus Scourge. We're playing Encroachment. The Scourge will be on the far side of the table from where I am viewing it right now, and the Shaltari will be over here. So this is the table. No objectives, of course, for Encroachment. Just the way the Scourge like it. So you have seen the table. We will be right back with army lists. We have the Scourge, 2,000 points.
So for my Oppressors battle group, I have a Desolator with a Master. It's command level 4 in it. 2 squads of Minders and Intruder Betas, and 2 Reaver Gunships. Then for my first Vanguard squad, I have a squad of 3 Hunters in a Marauder, and a squad of 3 Reapers in a Marauder. For my second Vanguard squad, it is a duplicate, a squad of 3 Hunters in a Marauder, squad of 3 Reapers in a Marauder. Then for my first Warrior Horde, I have 3 squads with 2 stands of warriors in them, and they are all mounted in Intruder Alphas. Then for my second Warrior Horde, I have 2 squads of 3 stands of warriors, and they are riding in Invaders, and they are sharing a Marauder. Then for my Invasion Host, I have a squad of 2 Tormentors. Each Tormentor has a base of Razor Worms inside, and they are mounted in a Marauder. Then I have a squad of 2 Slayers mounted in a Marauder. And finally, rounding out the list, I have an Occupation Patrol with 2 identical squads of 4 Prowlers in Intruder Betas.
Alrighty, so there are the Scourge. We have the Shaltari Tribes beginning with their gate pool. We have 3 individual Eden medium gates and 4 individual Spirit Light gates, 2 there and 2 over here. We have 2 Haven Terra gates, also individuals. Starting things off, we have for our Court of Elders, Coyote with a High War Chief, so command level 5. Our 2 standards, the first Shaltari sword point is 4 Tarantulas in 2 squads of 2 and 3 Kukri AA grab tanks. The second sword point is 2 squadrons of 3 Tomahawks and a squadron of 3 Kukris. Our War Fist is a pair of Caimans. They are individuals. And then for our Spear Tip, we have 2 Firstborns and 2 Yaris with light ion cannons. Rounding things out with infantry, we have a pair of Thunderbird gunships attached to 2 stands of Braves. And the other group is simply 2 groups of 2 stands of Braves. So you have seen the armies and you have seen the table. We will be back as we get stuck into the Maelstrom. Deployment was in play. The Shaltari decided to take advantage of that. We have a Cayman and a block of Tomahawks and Kukris here, Commander in the center, and the same thing down here. The rest of the forces are in readiness, and all of the the 2 small gates and all of the infantry and the tarantulas are dematerialized. So now we are going to dice for initiative and get this thing underway. Alright, the Scourge rolled a 3, but the Shaltari have their level 5 commander on the table, so we will still win there. We will let the Scourge go first, and we will be back as the game gets underway. Turn 1 is in the books. The Scourge won first activation with the Occupation Force. They brought in their Prowlers, who moved up here, trying to get up as close as they could to where everything had already deployed. For the first activation for the Shaltari, we activated infantry so that we could just burn an activation, go ahead and let them take another one. So we left those infantry in reserve. The Scourge went second with the Oppressors. They came on here in the center with the commander and then brought in a squad of Minders to either flank. 1 there and 1 here. Shaltari answered with the sword point. We moved the Tomahawk, or not the Tomahawks, the Tarantulas first. We activated the Kukris, and we used an anti-grav boost to jump over the building to get some extra distance. With the Kukris, we managed to shoot down both of these, and both of them lost 1 Prowler in the explosion as they crash landed. Scourge answered with the Warrior Cabal, brought up their bigger infantry unit right here. The Shaltari then activated their second sword point, which was Tomahawks, 2 here. They fired into this building and knocked 5 damage points out of it. Kukris had no target, so they fired their AA cannons here and did 1 damage point to this building. And the final Tomahawks moved over here and fired here to knock 6 more out of this. I forgot when he brought his commander on, he also brought the Reaver gunships on. He did 7 points and I did 5. Scourge went next with their second warrior cabal. Those infantry are all loitering around this building here. Shaltari response was infantry as well. That was to bring the Thunderbirds on. The infantry remained dematerialized for now. And the Thunderbirds killed one more of the Prowlers here. Next up was the Scourge invasion host. They brought on their heavies. Tormentors came in here and disembarked and took a Jink and Weave card. And the Slayers moved up 24 inches onto the flank here, staying inside their dropship. Shaltari Warfist was next. This came and slid over here. Fired his Gauss Triad. Oh, not to that building. Forgot. He fired down here. Trying to get some hits on them while they only had the Jink and Weave up. We scored 2 hits, but no damage with the Triad. And both of the lasers hit, but to no surprise, they're needing 6s. They did no damage as well. However, this one was a little more productive. He slid up, fired through the street, and destroyed 2 more of the Prowlers. Scourge Vanguard was the next formation up. They brought on, let's see, where did they come on? Vanguard. Where did your Vanguard show up at? Down here, that's right. They came on down here. He brought on, or no, it was the Hunters down here. Hunters came on here. And their AA tanks came on down here. The Shaltari then ran their Court of Elders, fired 2 more Gauss shots before moving behind the building. Were able to destroy 1 more of the Prowlers, so those tenacious last 2 held in, 1 from each squadron. Scourge Vanguard finished things up, brought the second group of Hunters on down here, or second group of Reapers rather, and the Hunters came on here. So that was the end of it for the Scourge. Last activation belonged to the Shaltari. They kept the Firstborns in reserve, but brought the Eden Gate on here and rematerialized the 2 Kukris, or Yaris, who came up here to begin the attack against the infantry. So that is turn 1. We're going to dice for initiative again and see how things go here on turn 2. So the Shaltari are going to roll a 1. And a 1 for the Scourge, which will be a Shaltari again, right? Because you have a level 4 commander, correct? Yep. So Shaltari will be taking first activation in turn 2. And we will be back as that rolls to an end. Turn 2 is over. The Shaltari went first, as you saw. Shaltari began things with a War Fist. We brought the first Cayman over here. Before he got this cluster of tanks in front of him, he decided to go ahead and stick around here. He fired along with his buddy who repositioned from the other side up here. Their Gauss Triads destroyed both of these. His lasers fired here and missed with both shots. The Cayman on this end fired, like I said, his Gauss Triad up and destroyed 1 of the 2 Tormentors. And his laser pods destroyed both of the surviving, drawing a blank, the Turtles. Destroyed both of them there, the Prowlers. Second activation for the Scourge. Brought on their infantry. Brought these guys in and went ahead and embarked in the building. The Shaltari activated infantry second, which was their small Braves group. They moved their Thunderbirds over here, fired and did some damage points here, knocked a couple of points out. That 6 is supposed to be sitting on their base. They lost 2 guys to falling masonry across the course of the turn. Scourge went next with their invasion host. They brought their heavies out, dropped their Slayers here on the flank. And since the Tormentors were down already, their Razor Worms went ahead and got in here. And their tank started his maneuver forward. The Shaltari went with their first sword point then. Went ahead and left the Tarantulas in reserve. But we moved their Kukris over here because their infantry had moved out here. I forgot to mention this. Their transports. We popped a quick thinking with the Yaris, moved them over, fired and did nothing to the intruders. The intruders flew out and hit and destroyed 1 of the Yaris. In response to them moving out, we moved the Kukris out, but the Kukris were only able to bring down 1 of the intruders between the 3 of them. Next up, the Scourge, after that Shaltari sword point, brought in their Vanguard, dropped tanks here next to the building, and brought their AA tanks out in the backfield here and landed them. Moved their transport up here, and that transport shot and destroyed the second Yari. So his plasma hoses have definitely been on their game. They're getting their job done for sure. Court of Elders, we activated the Coyote, moved him out, and fired him through the gap into that building as well. He did 1 damage point to it, but did nothing to the guys inside. Scourge activated their second Vanguard. The AA tanks fell out here behind the structure, and the Hunters fell out here in the street. Shaltari responded with their second sword point of the Tomahawks and the remaining Kukris. Tomahawks here fired into the building. Their falling masonry results knocked down 1 of the 2 men that were dead there. And These Tomahawks moved out here, fired on the one Slayer that they could see enough of, but missed with all 3 shots. The Kukris, however, were able to shoot down this dropship, which was the one that was carrying these guys. They were able to destroy it. Scourge responded with their oppressors. Commander is continuing to push his advantage up the center of the field, and the heavy gunships have moved up here into the center. Shaltari responded with big infantry group. We brought the 2 squads on through this Eden, disembarked them through these gates, and took this building to start a CQB. Scourge finished their turn off with their last activation of infantry, which brought the bigger group of infantry down here and disembarked them into this building. And Shaltari ended things up by moving up. They had already activated the Yaris, who are now dead. Used the Eden that brought the Yaris in to scoot up further and put the Firstborn in here to continue to buff up this melee. So that is the end of turn 2. We're going to go ahead and roll for initiative for turn 3 now, if I can find my dice here hiding behind me, and see how things shape up there. So for the Shaltari, we have a 7. And for the Scourge, we have a 5. So Shaltari will have first activation. We will be back as turn 3 rolls to an end. For turn 3, you saw the Shaltari won that. So they took first turn. They activated the sword point with the commander, or with the tarantulas. We moved the Kukris up here in an attempt to knock these gunships down. Scored a bunch of hits but did no damage. The third guy, who didn't have the range quite to get around there, he fired over here and destroyed one of the intruders. The Scourge opened things up with their invasion host, moved their Slayers up here, and the Shaltari responded with sword point. After that, we brought on the other 2 Eden gates and picked up the Kukris and the Tomahawks. Tomahawks remained on the mothership, and we went ahead and brought this Eden in as well and dropped the Kukris from their formation over here. There's just too much armor closing with us down there. Scourge Vanguard activated next, brought these hunters rolling up through here, and down here they brought their Reapers out. The Reapers fired and destroyed this Eden. In response, the Shaltari did their War Fist. The Cayman moved up here. His Gauss Triad punched out one of the Reapers, and the other one fired here at the hunters and completely missed, did no damage there. Fired and put a couple of points into this building with his lasers. Or no, he didn't. He didn't do anything with his lasers. He missed with them. Next up was Scourge Infantry. That was these guys. Or no, rather Vanguard. I'm sorry. His second Vanguard was next. He tried to play a relentless advance here. We were holding an espionage though, so we countered it. They moved up here in an attempt to get a little closer for shooting in the future turns. And their Reapers moved out here into the street. Next up was Shaltari Command. We moved the Court of Elders, took the Coyote up here. He fired through the gap and destroyed one of the hunters. Next up was Commander for the Scourge. Moved his Desolator up another 12 inches. The gunships moved out here and completely whiffed, did nothing to the Kukris. One of these, or no, he did. He destroyed one of the Kukris with them. These were the ones that whiffed, fired their plasma hoses and did nothing during their activations. Next up was Infantry for the Shaltari, which could not activate because of setup for the turn. Or no, I'm sorry, they were, the first group of infantry remained in reserve. They did move their Thunderbirds up. They fired here and destroyed a second Reaper. The other group of infantry and the scouts were all locked up in the CQB here. So from that point, we went straight into the CQB. The Scourge rolled 30 dice and not a single 6. No saves needed on the Firstborn. No Braves went down. And in response, he has 2 men left from this squad, and 1 man surviving here. And all of them passed their fortitude checks and decided they were going to give it another go. Unbelievably bad CQB dice there. But that is turn 3. We're going to dice off now for initiative one more time, going into turn 4, and see how things go. Shaltari come up with a 5. So barring a 6 from the Scourge, that'll give them initiative. And the Scourge have a 3. So the Shaltari will take initiative going into turn 4. We will be back as that rolls to an end. Shaltari had initiative again. They started things with their War Fist. We went ahead and picked him up because they were starting to encroach on this flank. Moved the gate there, and the other gate moved 20 inches to here. The Eden down here dropped him out in the street before repositioning to here. The second one slid over here, fired his Triad up the street, and destroyed the final Reaper there to try to knock out some more of his AA cover. Scourge answered with their command, and their command answered big time. Moved over here. This guy fired his siren, did 2 points to every damage around him, except for this building. He only did 1 to it. But the big thing was he put 2 damage points in the coyote, and then his gunship swung over here and busted the coyote, knocked it out. The commander ejected and landed here in the street. That was my next activation. I went ahead and picked him up with a spirit, which used the rest of its move to come up here to support the infantry. The Scourge answered with their first Vanguard unit. They swung their hunters out here, or rather here. These hunters moved out first, the 2 skull markers there in the street. And the AA tanks moved out to here. They did not have any range to really do anything this turn, so they didn't fire. Shaltari answered with their first sword point, which was the one with the tomahawks. These 3 tomahawks swung out, fired on the one hunter that they could see and destroyed it. The kukris from that group slid up here, destroyed the last intruder for the infantry, and knocked 2 points out of this marauder. The Scourge answered with their second Vanguard. The infantry from that, or the AA tanks from that, were destroyed already. Their hunters moved up here in the street and continued their advance. Shaltari responded with their second sword point, which the tarantulas are still remaining off the table, but their kukris continued their advance and knocked out the last point from that marauder and brought it down. Scourge infantry were the next thing. These guys maneuvered around in their building, and their invaders shifted over here to the flank. Shaltari answered with infantry. They remained dematerialized. That was the squad with the Thunderbirds. But the Thunderbirds did move up here into the street and fire across and destroy the second hunter. So those Thunderbirds are definitely working to earn their place in my list. Finally, for the Scourge, before the CQB started, we had an invasion host move. They moved the Slayers up here in support. And the Razor Worms finally made their distance here to garrison in my half of the table. Then Shaltari went with their infantry, which committed to this CQB. And then when the Scourge activated, again, rolled 5 more dice, no 6s, and we allocated the Braves to fight. The Braves destroyed everyone there. Final activation, the Firstborn used the Haven before it moved to teleport out, and used one of the Edens that had not yet come on to come in down here, probably sending them to their doom, but I figured maybe I can cut a few guys down here before it's over. And that was the end of the turn. That is 4 in the books. We will be rolling for initiative now, and going into turn 5, the Shaltari will be rolling at initiative 1, because the commander is still on the mothership. So I have a 3, which will give me a 4. A 3, we'll give it to him, but the one card I am holding is the reroll at command value 5. So we're going to give this a second try here to see if we can overcome that. And I have a 6, so as long as he rolls a 2, he's got it, and with a 5, he will. So the Scourge will be going first this turn. We will be back as turn 5 is in the books. Without the High Chief on the board, the Shaltari got confused. We did play a Central HQ directive at the beginning of the turn, as you saw, but the Scourge still came up with the initiative. Their first activation was to move their commander over here. He fired and did 1 damage point to the Cayman that was up here. He rolled a 6 on him. He was down here whenever he fired. Then his gunships continued what they have been doing so far this game, busted all 3 tomahawks with their shots through their skimmer buffs, so those guys have been his MVPs for sure. The first activation for the Shaltari was Sword Point, the one with the tomahawks. We brought an Eden Gate up here and dumped them, and we brought the second Eden that was down here 20 inches up to get him out of range of those Reapers. So we moved them 2 Edens forward there with him. Brought them out, dumped the 3 kukris from that group, and shot here. Couldn't deal the second damage point to this gunship, but the other one was destroyed in the fire there. The Scourge then activated their Vanguard, brought their Reapers screaming in down here, fired, and blew up this. Only had 1 guy in range, but they did blow up this gate. Let's see, what was next? Shaltari Infantry. We moved the light infantry. Their Thunderbirds that were here swept up to here, fired at the central building to try to kill some worms with falling masonry. Rolled 2 1s to hit. Their infantry came on down here and shot into the building with a spirit gate to get involved in this nastiness. The Scourge then went with their invasion host. rolled their slayers up here into the street. That's about all that's left in that group. I think they shot a dropship down here. The dropships have become a mess. We can't remember who was carrying who, really, so we've got all of them. I'm sure my Scourge opponent knows, but I do not. They are all just Gribblies pouring plasma on me at this point, so I'm not sure which is which. My next activation was the War Fist. We moved the Cayman up. He knocked 6 points out of the central building and did 2 damage points to the, or 1 damage point to the worms. The other Cayman was jetted through this Eden and stayed in dematerialized state. The Scourge activated their Vanguard next, moved their hunters down the street along with their dropship, shooting towards the combat as quickly as possible. Shaltari went with infantry next. We moved these guys to the wall, fired small arms, and busted 3 of the 4 minders during command. They had moved up here to create a gate across this opening to prevent me from moving my guys through. We busted 3 of them with the Shaltari. The Scourge activated their infantry finally. They've had 2 battle groups destroyed at this point, so these infantry went next. After the CQB, we lost 2 Braves and 2 Firstborns. We killed 11 of the 15 guys from this squad, and the squad down there in the street lost 8 men. They felt their fortitude and are fell out to move towards this building and get clear of the nastiness in there. Shaltari answered with Court of Elders and the Spider Sword Point, which the Court of Elders, the commander just remained on the battleship, and the Kukris moved up here and crossed the center line. And then finally were the scouts, who had already activated because of the CQB. So that is turn 5. Let me grab a die here, and we will roll for initiative going into this final turn. Again, I am at initiative 1 because I do not have anybody on the board. So I have a 6. So if he doesn't roll a 6, it will go to me. And with a 5, it will stay with the Shaltari. So even at initiative 1, I've managed to maintain initiative 5 of 6 turns. So we are going into turn 6, and we will be back with the final results once it is finished. 6 has rolled to an end. We're going to start things off with the Shaltari because they won initiative still. The Sword Point went first. We went ahead and finally brought the Tarantulas in and dumped them down here in the table out of the Edens to claim the other half of the table. Scourge Vanguard went second. I forgot to activate this Eden. I was going to use it, shoot it up 30 to keep it from getting killed. They pounced all over that, didn't give me a chance to rectify that mistake. These guys moved up and blew him all to pieces with their second activation. Shaltari went with their second sword point next. We went ahead and moved. We used the Kukris from the first one, I forgot to mention that, to destroy the intruder and the final dinner plate. Forgetting what they're called right now. I always forget. The last of the AA minders. There we go. Destroyed them, and the other Kukris fired here before moving, destroyed this dropship, and put 1 damage point in one of the Marauders. And then we moved over here to try to clear some space up. We couldn't get the other Cayman through when we got to it, so it ended up down here beside them. The Scourge activated command next. He moved over here and did his little horn. He scored a hit on the Cayman that was close by, but it bounced off of the passive save. He hit this building with the Braves, but did no damage. Shaltari activated War Fist next. Like I started to say, we dropped the Cayman here because we couldn't get him through. This one moved for the center, didn't hardly have range, so he fired his Triad down here and destroyed one of the hunters. Scourge activated infantry next, moved these bases into the building to garrison, and the others were destroyed in the CQB. However, they did take the first base of Braves with them. Shaltari answered with their light infantry by activating the Thunderbirds. They moved up here, fired on the hunters to no effect. Next up was the invasion host. Since the infantry had been slaughtered, the Slayers moved out, pummeled the building. The Vanguard also moved up after that, these 2 guys, and hit the building. Go ahead and cover both of them while we're here. Did a bunch of damage here, killed a whole base of Firstborn and the last of the Braves. 1 Brave and 1 Firstborn survived this combat after the damage started falling on them. Shaltari activated their other infantry next, moved these guys to the walls, and fired down and destroyed one of the Marauders here in the street to keep it from firing its hose cannon. And then the Scourge with their last Vanguard shots came up here, tried to knock the Cayman out with some plasma cannons, but did no damage there. Shaltari Court of Elders brought the commander in down here with the last Spirit Gate that was alive on the table. And then for their final activation, it was a dead one because the scouts had already activated down here. So after tallying points for garrisoning and line breaking and also kill points, the Shaltari came out ahead 2173 to 1273. So that will be a Shaltari victory. We will have after-action reviews and army lists at the blog as always. Give us a subscription on YouTube and a like on Facebook, as that's the best way to see our new content as it comes out. It also shows the health of the channel, lets us know if we need to change anything up. Leave us a comment below on what you thought about the game, what you'd like to see us do differently in the future, and also on our army choices. And as always, guys, we appreciate the time you spent with us today at the Maelstrom.